Hey game makers! Welcome to Pixelated Pope Private Investigator, the show where I fix issues in your game maker projects in an attempt to teach you techniques for debugging and problem solving. The project in this episode is called Time Swapper and was created by Reddit user Length. I've put a link in the description below where you can play it for yourself right in your browser, so check it out. What's really impressive though is that Length only recently got Game Maker as part of the September Humble Bundle. I'm incredibly impressed with what he's accomplished in such a short time. So, what's the issue in Time Swapper? Well, there are actually two issues. The one Lemp himself asked me for help with, and the one I discovered when I started looking into his issue. So let's see if I can knock both of these out in our first double feature. This first issue can be reproduced on the Windows platform, but doesn't present itself on the HTML platform Lemp was building the game for. It can also be reproduced in any room besides the first room. So here in the second room, if I press either R to restart the room, or 2, 3, or 4 to resize the game window, the background disappears and is replaced with the background from the previous room. But, oddly enough, it comes right back the next time I press one of those same buttons. Even more interesting is that if I hit 1 to reduce the window to its smallest size, the issue resolves itself and can no longer be reproduced as long as the game stays open. Obviously, this is a really curious issue. I think the best place to start would be the rooms. Let's see what's going on with the backgrounds of the room where the bug is reproducible. So there's no background set, which is certainly interesting. Real fast, let's set a background and see if that fixes the issue. Nope, issue still persists. Honestly though, adding that background wouldn't really be solving the issue, as it wouldn't explain why reducing the window to its smallest size fixes everything. Regardless, since the background isn't set in the room editor, it must be done in code. Let's look at our instance list and find all the unique objects that are present in the room and go through them one by one. Go to the Settings tab and hit the Instance Order button to see the list of all the instances in the room. So at the top, we have Object Input, Object Spawner, Object Goal, and Object Crystal, and a whole bunch of object walls. Let's attack each of these in order to see what we find. Create event seems pretty normal. Alarm 0 centers the window. Step event is just getting the input. Escape ends the game. 1 through 4 changes the resolution of the game. Let's real quickly peek into each of these and see if there are any differences, specifically a difference between 1 and the other 3. Nope, only difference is the sizes passed to window set size and surface resize. R key does a simple room restart, so I think this object is a dead end. Object Spawner is next on our instance list. Let's look into the create event. Ooh, Object Floor Manager seems like it could be very relevant. Let's take a look in there. Okay, it looks like he builds his floor randomly. Cool, but it seems like these tiles are disappearing. I could set a breakpoint to make sure this code is getting hit every single time, but I don't want to step through every single iteration of this enormous loop. Instead, let's do something interesting. I'm going to check to see if something is happening to our tiles when we resize the game. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but maybe they're being destroyed. I'm going to add a draw GUI event, and in that event, I'm going to draw out the ID of the tile the mouse is over. If the ID is anything but -4, then the tile exists and hasn't been destroyed or lost. I'm going to use TileLayerFind, which returns the ID of the tile at a specific depth and at specific coordinates. The depth he uses for his tiles in the create event is 19 million, and I'm going to use mouse X and mouse Y as the coordinates. Let's run the game and mouse over our tiles and make them disappear. If the IDs still show up, then they are definitely there and something else is going on. It's a little hard to see, but it's the small white text in the top left. Let's resize the game window and see if the tiles are still there. They definitely are still there. That tells me something else is going on. Specifically, I believe something is being drawn on top of the tiles. Let's go back to Object Spawner real fast. I remember seeing something suspicious in the create event. So after Object Floor Manager is created, we also create an instance of Object Shadow Surf. I'm guessing that surf refers to the surface that object is creating and most likely drawing, and he's probably doing something silly. Let's look into it. Pretty standard stuff here. Although, I'd like to make a suggestion. If a surface doesn't exist, you definitely shouldn't draw it. However, if you do things the way he has it here, it can actually create a one-frame flicker where it is creating the surface but not drawing it. Instead, organize your code like this. If not instance exists surf, then create it and populate it. Then, no matter what, draw it. Now you can always guarantee that the surface was created successfully since you created it immediately above it, and there's never a single frame where the surface isn't being drawn. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. I suspect this surface is doing something weird. It looks normal from just looking at how it's created, but let's comment it out and see if that fixes the issue. There we go. So the surface was drawing over the tiles. But why does it work seemingly at random? Well, now that I know who's responsible, it's a bit easier to explain. When you use the createSurface function, you are essentially allocating video memory for your surface. However, this memory is not cleared automatically, which means anything that was in that part of video memory previously could still be there, and in some cases, it may be fully intact. Both restarting the room and resizing the window will destroy the surface, forcing it to be recreated. Each time, it would switch between the video memory that held the first room and the second room. I imagine he expected that every time he created a surface, he would get a nice, clean, transparent surface, but that's just not the case. You actually have to do the cleaning yourself. So it's a good practice that whenever you are drawing to your surface for the first time to do a draw clear alpha. Let's throw that in now, immediately after we set the target to the surface. Draw clear alpha will clear the entire screen to a specific color and alpha, but it does the same thing when targeting a surface. So if we clear it to a color of 0, which is black, and an alpha of 0, which is fully transparent, we essentially initialize our surface to a nice, transparent blank canvas for us to work with, and clear out any residual data that may be in that memory. Let's run it again with draw clear alpha added, and see if that fixes the issue. Case closed. But we aren't done yet. We have one more issue we have to tackle. This one is easiest to reproduce in the next room. Let me explain the primary gameplay mechanic in this game. It's actually pretty cool. There are elements in each level that move, and you have a gun to shoot those moving things. When you shoot them, you swap your speed with the speed of the things you shot, making you faster and it slower, and vice versa. It creates some really interesting puzzles. The bug occurs when you swap your 100% speed, as seen in the top right corner, for an object's 25% speed and start moving at the same time. Ha! First try. Okay, so you can see I was able to walk straight through the wall, and now I'm stuck, forcing me to restart the level with the R key. Obviously, we don't want this to happen. Collision issues can often be very tricky, but hopefully we can figure out why this is happening and get it fixed. Let's go check out Object Player. Our first goal is to find where wall collision is taking place, then we'll go see where speed swapping takes place and figure out how they might relate to one another. In the create event, it looks like we have lots of properties and a basic finite state machine. Awesome, that may make things a bit easier. Let's go ahead and take a look at script move state. Wow, okay, there is a lot going on here. Give me a few minutes to go through this and figure out how this all works. I may end up reformatting it so I can read it a bit easier. I don't usually like to bag on people's coding style, especially people who are new to GameMaker, but I really do recommend managing your whitespace, your tabs and spacing as you code. Readability is important, and sloppy, hard to look at code can be a pain to work with, regardless of what style you are using. Anyway, be right back. Welcome back. I think I understand what's going on here. The move state is basically split up into two major parts. The game requires that you hold down a direction for at least a couple of frames before it starts responding. The top part of the code is everything while the player is holding a button, but before the character starts to move, and the bottom section is everything while the character is moving and colliding. The script is still really complicated, with a lot of code to comb through. There are many possible points of failure, and I think we might be able to narrow things down a bit if we go and look at the other factors in reproducing the bug, changing your speed. So let's put a pin in this and try and find where our speed changes when we fire. Object Bullet seems as good a place as any to start. In the collision with Object Collide, we place some sounds and we set this contact variable to the ID of the instance we collided with. Maybe that's used in the step event? Ah, there we go. So we get the colliding object speed and the player's speed and swap the two, directly setting the SPD variable in both objects. That means SPD is very important, and if that's changing while the player is moving, then that could absolutely be our issue. With that information, let's head back to the move state script and search for all uses of SPD. I'm going to hit Ctrl F to open the search panel. You can also hit the little magnifying glass in the top toolbar. Let's find every instance of SPD in this script using whole word and case sensitivity. So there we set the variable len equal to speed. I imagine that's to prevent exactly what I expect is causing the issue. Even if speed changes, we've already locked it in before we've moved. We can even see that len is used just below here to set our horizontal and vertical speed that we use for movement later on. That's just controlling the image speed, so we can probably just ignore that. This block just picks the footstep sound to play based on the current speed, so that's okay. Aha! Bingo! We are incrementing our x and y values as well as our step counter. Step counter controls how long a step should take. So if your speed is 1, it will add 1 to step counter every step. And regardless of your speed, once you've reached 8, you stop moving. So if we fire our weapon and start moving, our h speed and v speed gets set based on our original speed of 1. But once we swap our speed, the step counter is getting incremented by much lower number, 0.25. Meaning we increment our x and y by 4 times as much as we should have. And once we are moving, there's no collision checking, so we'll walk straight through a wall. So this should be as easy as just replacing the SPD variable with the len variable. Let's test it out and see if we can still reproduce the bug. Since it's hard to guarantee that the bug is fixed, I'm going to test it a lot and just fast forward through it. It usually only takes me 3 or 4 tries max to reproduce it, so if after a few minutes I can't get it to happen anymore, I think we can call this one solved. After that many attempts, I think it's pretty safe to say that this bug is squashed. Case closed. I'd like to thank Lymph for letting me use his awesome project in this episode. Definitely go play it by following the link in the description below. If you're stuck on a bug in your project and want me to work through it in an episode of Pixelated Pope, Private Investigator, follow the link in the description below to find out how. If you have any comments or questions, be sure to post them down below. And if you liked this video and want to see more content like it, click those like and subscribe buttons. If you haven't already, check out one of the previous episodes of PPPI, or maybe watch my new tutorial series on parallax scrolling effects. Either way, thanks for watching. Now go make something awesome.